California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. I'm in Sacramento, so you're watching from the state's capital, and we are joined by Bill Monning. He is a member of the California State Senate. Sir, I have to say, I was absolutely shocked when I saw you standing with Attorney General Kamala Harris and others to announce that we are facing a truancy crisis. This is a crisis.
In elementary school.
Sir, what can you tell us?
So I'm honored to be, first I want to thank you for the opportunity and the work that you do to give us voice here. I am working with Attorney General Kamala Harris in my SB 1107, which looks at the problem of elementary school truancy, children who are not showing up for classes or they're chronically late, and so it gets reported as an absence. What we're seeking to do is gather the data that Kamala Harris...
If you don't mind,
please.
I'm going to hold this up. Here's the highlight. The highlight is that in 2012 and 13, nearly 30% of California elementary school students were truant. Sir, 30%?
Right, and some people may ask, well, why is the Attorney General getting involved? The reason the Attorney General is so interested, and one reason I am interested, is truancy can be prosecuted. It is a crime where parents can be prosecuted if they're found to be responsible for their child missing school. Our goal, working with the Attorney General and with support from the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, our goal is to keep those kids and families out of the criminal justice system. We want to ask the question, why are children missing school, and what's going on in the family? Is that child who's missing school maybe taking care of a sibling or an elder who is ill, parents at work? There's a story behind these, and what we do know is that truancy in elementary school becomes an absolute marker for failure and not graduating from high school.
A predictor.
A predictor.
At the same time, I'm sure you've heard there are studies that indicate that truancy prosecutions can often weigh toward those that live in communities of color.
Right.
And like you said, there's a story, and oftentimes the story is not nefarious. The story is a transportation crisis.
That's right.
The story is a sick first cousin.
Right.
So talk to me about how you look at the truancy crisis with a lens that is colorblind.
Right. So the purpose of my bill, there's a suite of some other bills that all address this issue, but my SB 1107 would support the Attorney General in collecting data that would help inform us as to what are the causes and, perhaps more importantly, best practices. What are the communities and school districts where they're having good success at reducing or eliminating truancy in their schools? So it's both fact-finding but designed to be actionable, that we can empower school districts with best practices. If we learn they're doing something really innovative in San Luis Obispo County, maybe that can be shared with folks in Santa Cruz County or Los Angeles County.
What was interesting to me about the report is counties in which one may anticipate high truancy numbers weren't necessarily the counties that came out on top. I mean, we saw some Central Coast counties that were very high in the truancy count.
Right.
To what do you attribute?
Well, in my district, I have a couple of counties. I represent 4 counties or parts of 4 counties, and a couple of them rank in second and third. But when you look at the demographics of those counties, we have a workforce that is largely migrant, not always native English speaking, and you combine those with a nexus with poverty, and that's when you run into the car that's not operational, or there is no car, or there's no child care for younger siblings.
When we come back, I want to continue this conversation. For our viewers on HLN, we thank you so much for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. So, sir, SB 1107 looks to investigate, evaluate the issue. Is that enough?
Well, as I mentioned, it's to evaluate, but to lead to informed action. And working with school districts, with truancy officers, with the district attorney's office, but most importantly with schools and with families, that early identification of trends that's leading a child to be truant. We want early intervention make sure that family's aware of social programs, maybe childcare that they could access so the truant child's not taking care of a younger sibling while a parent's at work. There might be programs through the employer that a member of the workforce doesn't know. So it's investigative, but Brad, very much designed to lead to action to reduce this chronic problem.
And as I understand it, and I don't mean this to be said in a callous way, but there are fiscal impacts to truancy.
That's right.
That we can't ignore.
Right.
Talk to us about those fiscal impacts.
Okay, so when a child does not show up to school, schools' budgets are built on something called the average daily attendance contribution. So the state of California, we pay to school districts based on very strict formulas of average daily attendance. A child who does not show up to school, the school district does not get reimbursed for that day of education. And when the problem becomes chronic and you have 5 or 10 children from each level of first grade, second grade, third grade, it can add up to quite a bit over the course of a year. So there's an economic interest as well for school districts. I would say that's a driving force, but the paramount interest is the interest of the child. We want to turn these trends into success stories.
So what do you hope to achieve in the end game? Because like you said, we will see an investigation, an evaluation, a report. What do you hope happens?
Well, I think I'm confident knowing some of the best practices that are already developed and in play. One of the counties I represent, Monterey County, has a very interactive program between the district attorney and the school districts, again, designed not to prosecute, but to understand why. So if there's a good practice there, if they've got a track record of reducing truancy by, say, 50% over the course of a year, let's share that with other school districts, and vice versa. Maybe Monterey can learn something from Indio.
Is the report focused exclusively on elementary school?
Yes, and the reason for that, truancy is an issue. It doesn't end at the end of elementary school, but in terms of the predictor that you mentioned earlier, putting limited resources into elementary school kids is perhaps the best investment we can make to help kids be successful in middle school and high school. If we're trying to catch them in middle school and high school, often the battle is already lost.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I do. That being said, and I know you're focused on elementary school, no criticism there, but I think about middle school, and to me, I mean, that really is the bridge.
Right.
I mean, a kid's going to fall off the bridge or stay on in middle school.
Well, the way things work here in Sacramento sometimes, if this proves to be an effective program, there's nothing to prevent it from being extended to middle school kids. There's a cost to everything we do, and we have to be smart in how we invest limited resources. That said, it's important to point out, this bill does not suggest that school districts aren't already engaged with middle school kids and high school kids. There are existing programs. District attorneys do prosecute in some cases, so they're not ignoring middle school and high school. It's just in terms of a remedy to help prospectively to prevent middle school and high school failures. Let's figure it out earlier when the kids are in elementary school.
What's the timeline? So
the timeline in our legislative process, we end session at the end of August this year. Assuming this wins support, it's had bipartisan support to date. We've made it through the Education Committee. It's on a consent calendar today in the Public Safety Committee. If it makes it to the governor's desk, and if he signs it into law, it would be effective January 2015.
Which means the report begins, the investigation begins,
the
evaluation
begins.
begins?
The data starts being collected with the goal of producing an annual report in 2015.
Okay.
So it would be within that one-year cycle.
So quick.
Quick.
Right.
And government doesn't always move quickly, but something like this, the focus is clear, the stakeholder interest is clear. We have a lot of partners who want to see this happen and want to see it succeed.
Okay. His name is Bill Monning. He is a member of the California State Senate representing the beautiful Central Coast of California. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.